be honest, I've never seen myself working in a lumber mill.
I think forestry is a good opportunity to provide for Indigenous peoples, yes. For northern communities. It's been around all my life.
I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of Indigenous people that want to get into the forestry area.
North of Meadow Lake, a lot of Indigenous people have worked in the forestry industry, and there is a lot of Indigenous-owned businesses.
We're in an Indigenous-owned company.
I do enjoy seeing other reservations starting their own trucking company, processing wood and all these other things that they do in the forest sector.
It's the start base, and it opens up so much opportunity to better yourselves, better your lives, or your family's lives.
A couple of people I've worked with in the past, a couple of my friends have started their own trucking companies, branching out as truck drivers and eventually running their own trucks.
I'd like to see more of our people working in industries like this.
Years ago, I don't think it was that great for Indigenous people. It wasn't us who reaped benefits from it.
First Nations people were stewards of this land. It was owned previously by the Saskatchewan government.
When MLTC took full ownership of North Sask in '98 is when I feel things kind of turned for Indigenous people.
Meadow Lake Tribal Council bought it along with the employees of North Sask.
And now it's 100% us, and that's nice to see.
It was all a vision of making sure that we controlled the forest and how we harvest and how we produce. And also, economic development was a big pusher, as well as employment.
Our communities have their own forestry operations, some of them their own outfits that do a lot of the work at the front line. When you're growing up, you never thought you were going to be experiencing that. I say nothing bad about non-Aboriginal businesses, but for being an Aboriginal, it's a good feeling that we could do something.
It feels really amazing that I'm working for, like, my own kin.
It's nice to know, like, you could relate with who you're working for. Who you're working for is your own people. It gives you a sense of pride.
Working with Aboriginal people, we all have the same sense of humor. We're always joking, we're always laughing, which is good. I don't have to leave the Indian at the door anymore. I had to before. It sucked. It really did suck, and I had to change my personality just to get along with my other coworkers.
I've never had a problem with working with anybody, but I'm more comfortable doing what I do with Indigenous companies. I like to see them grow. I like to see them expand.
You're not just some other guy who's working to make somebody else richer. What it does economically for us, part of our revenue goes back to our communities, right? So everything that we do here helps better so many other people. Not all 9 nations see something from North Sask.
Dividends, or going back to the communities. Money going back to Northwest Saskatchewan, creating local economies, which means housing to the communities, which means youth centers, which means different social ailments that they can help cure with the monies that they get from our investments.
They'll use that for like infrastructure in their own communities. They do programs or elders to help out elders with housing and go around with what they get from us. Gives you a sense of feel good, I guess, to know like you're part of a company that does kick back to the 9 nations involved with this company. Other companies, it's the rich get richer. And with us, it's like our people see something of it.
That's what this means to the communities. We're not standing there all the time with our hands out. We're helping ourselves. And when you help yourselves, you become stronger. Good involvement means employment. We know that education is key to get out of poverty, right? So therefore, we get these young people trained to run machines. We get them trained to drive trucks. We get them trained to work in the sawmill environment, the biomass. As you walked around this week, you've seen what our native content of employees in our organization. We give them education. We give them an opportunity to fulfill their lives in a good way.
We're still one of the leaders in our province, in this part of the nation. MLTC has worked very hard to build up from what was a struggling sawmill before we took over and build it into something that, you know, over 100 people have employment at.
To see other young Indigenous people working here and, you know, making names for themselves. You got guys who start off as general laborers and end up millwrights and electricians, and it's not just you're a general laborer. You can become anything.
Our ancestors were working men, working women. They weren't sitting around doing nothing, right? They had to work.
Since we're going into business for myself, I haven't worked a day in my life since 2019. And I'm sure it's the same for him too. And it's one of the hardest working jobs there is. You know, like we're waking up at stupid hours, 1:30, 3:30 in the morning. But to show people the why, I think if you showed them that, maybe they'd be more interested.
A lot of Indigenous people have come to me and asked, how do we get a job there? And I tell them, there's application forms that you can fill out or do it online, or there's a career office.
Even like we put on ourselves, well, I'm a native person. They're not gonna trust me. They're not gonna give me a job. Well, why not? If you show me work hard.
I love what I do. People here are nice people to work with. Staff is good. They treat you good. If you need anything, they're always there for you.
A couple of my best friends I made working here. You spend more time with these guys than you do your actual family most times, really. So, and when you get along with everyone, it's nice. You could look forward to going to work.
It's all about knowing what you're doing and being safe about it.
It feels good to be here instead of stocking groceries.
My livelihood had really changed because I had more opportunity to be with my kids with their sport events and everything, working closer to home. They see me every day. I don't know if they'll get tired of me, but I hope not.
Pride of doing stuff for some other Indigenous-owned business is the best thing. Like, keep growing.
And there's green energy too. I like that too. They're just not burning it and sending it out to atmosphere.
Nearly 100% of a tree can be used in our facilities. Either it becomes lumber or posts or wood chips, and all byproduct gets turned into electricity at the bioenergy center. So there's no part of that tree we can make use of. And if that doesn't speak to sustainability and, you know, cultural values, there's nothing else that does.
Stump to dump, I call it stump to dump. That's using 100% of the log that we take out of the bush, which is important to us. And we've been instilled in us by our elders before our elders, and to make sure that we are looking after and being good stewards of Mother Earth.
As First Nations people, we're the environmentalists, right? And in this industry, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
If you don't have that respect, that traditional knowledge, that reverence for the land, then of course you wouldn't look after it. But it's learned, it's taught by elders, by parents, by other users. And it all comes into play when you work in the forestry sector.
A lot of Indigenous people don't really know and don't really like agree with it, you know, because it's you're killing off Mother Nature, right?
I'd say, like, to someone who doesn't know, they'd say forestry, oh, all they're doing is cutting down trees in the forest.
When people ask me, you guys are killing the forest.
From their perspective, we're destroying the forest. From our perspective, we're thinning it and preventing further damage from fires.
A lot of things that they don't understand is that, especially with Norcesc hiring Mystic Management, they take care of the areas that are all being cut down by other companies.
If we didn't own half of Mystic Management, there would be more of an economic turn, more so than the traditional value of looking after Mother Earth.
the sustainability measures that are put in place are some of the best in our entire forestry sector. The region is in good hands. It's well looked after.
The stewardship of our lands, that's top priority.
They do have programs where people go tree planting and regenerate this forest that they cut down and bring it youth again and make it new.
I would say part of my role as it exists now is to bring in people who understand what forestry is about, and I feel like I'm a good fit for that role because I'm a land user like everybody else. I like to be out in the woods. I like to be out by the lakes and the rivers. You know, I'll pick berries in the summer. I go harvest fallen firewood for the winter. And when I'm out in the bush, you see nothing but people from the communities doing the exact same things.
I think there's probably a lot of people out there that think, you know, like you're out there just to make a buck, but there are benefits to the forest too, and that needs to be brought across to the people, you know, so that they can understand what forestry is all about.
The forests are managed extremely well here. It's not like these guys are going and just clear cutting everything. No, like they have to be careful where they go, what they cut, and they have to know exactly where and what they're cutting.
They don't realize the money is going to be put back into the forest. They make sure they don't go out of their way to cut more or less, you know, so they know what's coming in, what's going out. And then also the tree planting part of it. So like after they're done cutting, they go back into the area and they mulch up the area and then they start tree planting.
You see this logging block and they're like, that's destroyed. But you're driving out there on a logging road, you know, and that's what I don't get. People don't understand, like, oh, I'm on this logging road. My bush is gone. But like if you just zoom out and you look at the bigger picture, the bush is still there. Plentiful. And it's a renewable resource.
The whole point of it is that it's sustainable. We take harvested trees out of the cut blocks. We have them harvested in the bush, on roads we've built ourselves, on trucks we've contracted using local people. And that regional economy is alive and well. But in order for that to be sustainable, they have to always be the responsible parties at every stage of the process. We only harvest what we need from those cut blocks. We replant everything that is taken.
I remember that first block I ever went to, and I could show anybody if they ever asked, and I could show them the trees that had grown. Like it's a forest again, like
probably almost ready to be logged.
Yeah, it's almost ready to be actually logged again.
We would never step on the toes of any of the communities in our region or any region. Everyone has to work together for it to work. Everyone has to look after the forest for it to work. Everyone has to look after the environment and those impacts so it can work to the benefit of everybody. There's always going to be a business component to making the best use of it. And I feel like the partnerships and the network that we've built in our region all have that same goal in mind. You know, make money, employ people, keep a regional economy healthy, and do it all so that it'll always be there for your next generation.
All the money that you see made through our forestry involvement stays in Northwest Saskatchewan. That creates an economy in Northwest Saskatchewan. Hopefully we see the decrease of the addictions, the decrease of the suicides, all those things that plague our communities. You know, hopefully that in the long run will be the success that we see.